Also, we look at some of the concerns stakeholders have been having over Bill 7, a political party that has been in full support of the initiation of the process to Bill 7 has been the ruling party, the Upnd. Its media director, Mark Simuuwe, has been on top of the hill calling on members of parliament to ensure that this bill becomes law. Well, today his wishes have come to light and we speak with him to get the reaction of the ruling party on this bill. Mrs. Mark Simuuwe, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Diamond Live tonight.
Thank you, Andrew, and a very good evening to the viewers.
Let's begin off with the reaction of the party to the passage of this bill. You have been speaking on this bill from the time that it went to Parliament, and you've been urging to the conscience of members of Parliament to have this bill passed. What's your reaction to the passage of this bill?
Well, this is victory for Zambia, and not only for all those that were proponents of the enactment of this particular bill. I should mention that it is victory for Zambia on the basis that a number of proposed areas of amendment in that particular bill were progressive. You may wish to know that in the previous government, they had to pass the constitutional amendments which were supported by the Upnd. In case people have forgotten, because the idea of supporting the amendments to the 1991 Constitution as amended in 2016 was premised on a number of issues that needed to be found in that document, arising from the Mungomba CRC and the various constitutional reviews that have been conducted before. Some of the key issues that the Upnd wanted to see in the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Bill then was number one, 50% plus one. It was a condition because that, look, this represents the aspirations of the people. Secondly, the running mate clause. Thirdly, creating an independent electoral system. Of course, this is something that has continued to remain, debatable. The next point is the Electoral Process Act, which they had to support. So that's subsidiary legislation. In essence, with many other provisions that are contained in the Amendment Bill number 2 of 2016, which later on became law, the Upnd supported, because at that time, the ruling party had no two-thirds majority. So it is sad to see people insulting members of parliament for a decision that they have undertaken with that constitutional mandate. You need to understand that the importance or the role of members of parliament is to make laws. Now we have a situation where MPs are being insulted for making laws. I decided to go back to 2016 so that people may appreciate the role that the Upnd members of parliament.
How did the Upnd manage to, because if you look at the numbers that were present in parliament and those that voted, it's almost 100% of those that voted in parliament. At third reading, almost everyone in fact at third reading voted yes, for this bill. But I think the question and the wonder by many people is that for so many stakeholders, they didn't think that the Patriotic Front would support you, the Upnd, on this process because you didn't support them in their previous process to amend the Constitution through Bill 10.
Yeah, not for so many, but for some. I think that's the right context. I should mention that it's an issue of us appealing to our conscience, where someone is saying, look, this provision in the Constitution, under Article 52(6) of the Constitution of Zambia, has changed the circumstances of fresh nominations, where an individual goes into filing of nominations and then they withdraw after filing of nominations. Then when they withdraw, then ECZ calls for fresh nominations. There is an argument which is noble there, and the argument is that arising from the Isaac Mwanza case, where the Constitutional Court had to make a pronouncement that where one withdraws, dies, or resigns, a fresh nominations must be called. We realized that that particular judgment changed the entire trajectory of the way we look at Article 52, Sub-Article 6, because that particular article takes into consideration parliamentary seats, presidential, and local government. Parliamentary seat under Article 70, where you find the qualifications and disqualifications of one to be a member of parliament. Article 100, where you find the qualifications and disqualifications of one to become president. And then you have 156, where you find local government. Now, all these areas are affected insofar as that judgment is concerned. And we had to appeal to the members of parliament to reflect on what kind of laws they are going to have. Certainly, you agree with me that even the same members of parliament who have voted for the bill were affected. Had they thought of standing, they know that there will be people that will withdraw to frustrate the process, and then they'll call for fresh nominations. So it did not affect only those you believe to belong to a particular party. It affected everybody, and later on would be members of parliament. Now, the last post I think we made with regard to assuming this bill did not succeed was that it had the Article 52(6) had the potential to cancel the general election. And this is my argument. If candidates that file in nominations and then one of them withdraws causes fresh nominations, it would also mean that we can all go and file in nominations during the general elections in August. And then one political party can agree with members across the country to withdraw, to resign. Do you know the implication of that? This is to cancel elections, which are statute bound. And then that creates a serious constitutional crisis. We have provisions for elections, by-elections that are called within 90 days. But we have no provision, Andrew, for a cancelled by-election. I mean, for cancelled general election. The whole election cancelled. That's the implication. So whether that political party may succeed or not, that's something that is debatable. In telling all its members that after you've done that, we shall all withdraw.
It has not happened before. And
yes, that's what I'm saying. This judgment we have been talking about came after the 2021 elections. I've heard arguments of people saying we had elections under the same law, but because they were malicious. And as we moved with these debates, people were able now to tap into what was happening.
My question was on how you managed to convince the Patriotic Front
I'm getting there.
To vote with you on Bill 7.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that it was through persuasion, making people get convicted to understanding that this argument makes a sense.
Was this persuasion through monetary persuasion? Because there are allegations that you paid these members of parliament 3 million kwacha.
That alleges must prove. Because is there any MOP who is going to say that I was given this money, I can demonstrate, I'm willing to go to ACC? I don't think there is one.
Are you confirming tonight that the Upnd never paid anyone?
Correct. And let me tell you, for what you do not know, Parliament has passed over 95 acts of Parliament. Are you telling me that all this time people are being bribed, and where did the money come from?
No, this is a different process.
No, it's not a different process. It's a legislative process. It doesn't matter in terms of the numbers. I'm talking about the legislative process. By the way, this is their mandate under Article 62. Which
needs 2/3 majority for it to pass.
The point is simple. The power to legislate is vested in the National Assembly. Now, we want to twist this organ of the state to do something else. As a matter of fact, we've been taking politics on the floor of Parliament when we are dealing with one house, which is basically a unicameral parliamentary system. One house. So when a bill goes, it's not a contestation of the opposition and the ruling party. It is about progressive and unprogressive laws.
Do you expect that the PF would vote with you?
Of course. A number of them, actually, let me tell you, our expectations were that the whole parliament was going to vote for the bill. That's what we were expecting. That the whole parliament, even those that were having press conferences, we knew that they were just playing drama. But the point is, this is victory for Zambians, and it is important that we speak to the issues before we jump into allegations that we cannot substantiate.
How is this victory for Zambians, Mr. Simuuwe? How does this become victory for Zambians?
How it becomes...
When in principle, there hasn't been much consensus that has been built on the process leading to Bill 7. the part of the other, because you're going to argue this point, but part of the church, part of the senior members of the church are not with you. The Law Association of Zambia is not with you, and several civil society organizations have rejected this bill. Even other political parties as well have rejected, the bill. Others calling it an illegality based off the Munia Zulu and Celestine Mkandila, case. And so, my question really is on: is this a legitimate bill based on the fact that it lacks consensus by key stakeholders? Yes, members of parliament have voted overwhelmingly, but stakeholders outside parliament are stating that this is a flawed process and a flawed bill.
Now, you should understand that I don't know how you define the word consensus. Okay? Consensus does not mean that you must all agree. As a matter of fact, part of the right to an opinion that you have in a democracy is that you can decide to disagree. There is no process almost world over where the constitution was enacted or amended by 100%. What? People always disagree. There will be people who disagree. That is why if you look at the voting pattern on that particular electronic system in parliament, that's why there is no. If you thought that there should be consensus at every level, then there should have just been yes there. Now, let me say this. In 2016, I'm sure you are aware that there are a lot of stakeholders that rejected the process. Laz was one of them. The NCC was rejected by Laz under Levi Mwanawasa. It did not go through. The Bill 10 was rejected by Laz. And that Laz was fought left, right, and center until they were ejected. That's how Lungisan came in. Remember, at the time of PF, they even threatened to enact another piece of legislation so that they could dissolve Laz. That's how serious they became. Because over Bill 10, may he so rest in peace, we had Tutwa Ngurube spearheading that particular crusade. And I should openly indicate to you that in 2010, the bill that was rejected by the majority people of Zambia was only reflective on the floor of parliament, where it was also rejected. You get the point? So it is a situation where this one, if you believe it was fraud, it could have been rejected on the floor of parliament by members of parliament. But I demonstrated in my preamble by showing you that UPND MPs voted for the constitution that we are using. That's why it passed. Because PF never had a two-third majority. So now, are you going to tell me? Now, are you going to tell me that the very fact that UPND supported the 2016 constitution, then PF bribed them? Why don't we talk about UPND voting with PF? Because PF had no two-third majority. Why don't we say the same? I told you that.
But this conversation of being bought is not new.
I'm aware. But here is the issue, Andrew. They are saying, look, some, don't say several, because you remember 34 CSOs supported the bill. So the question is, how many CSOs do you have? If you find 2 women speaking against the bill. And
arguably also they were saying that those CSOs that went to State House were actually even bought as well.
So we should also allege that all those the Katebes and others were bought by the opposition. Is that what you are saying? So why do you think those that support the bill were paid and those that went with the opposition to bed and suggesting on political strategies were not bought? Because it is not right to think that when your friends disagree with you, then they've been bought. When they agree with you, then you've not bought them. We should as well conclude that all those CSOs, NGOCC, CCZD, EFZD, ZCCB were bought. Is that correct? I don't think that is the correct argument we should have. Clearly, we've been able to demonstrate what those people did. They started cheating citizens. That the president wants to increase his tenure of office. You could hear it for yourself. There was more blackmail. And what we have done, and what we have been consistent with, is to argue by the text. When we are pushing an argument that this bill can be amended at the second stage and at the select and report stage, we will go to standing orders clearly and read. That is the difference between PF and the UPND. In the same manner, we challenged my cousin Simuuwe to a debate. What PF could see attractive is an odd picture where I was wearing a pajama. Then they say, when you are wearing a blouse, it does not make you qualified to debate with Simuuwe. Now, while you are wasting time with that kind of comedy, UPND is pushing an argument on the importance of the bill. That is the difference. They wasted much of their time in court. You agree with me? So many matters of litigation were thrown all over court. They were busy drafting when we were busy debating and explaining to the people. Almost the whole of last week, I was on the copper belt. What was I doing? Because I know that a matter of a legal nature, like this particular constitution, cannot be understood by everybody, including some of our members that we believe, that we believe could be used to explain to the people what was really contained in the bill. So what did we do? We took initiative by UPND and said, can we have some of the people that frequent radio stations trained? And we had to answer very serious questions. What were the questions? People are saying this bill is going to kill democracy. In what context? We were explaining. People are saying this bill seeks to remove 50% plus one. We told them this is not correct. People said this bill,
me and you know that that wasn't the major argument by stakeholders like Laz and these others. The major issue was on the process. They didn't take much time, debating the content. Even when Laz, appeared before the Parliamentary Select Committee, they refused to argue the content.
I will tell you something, Andrew. They were shifting the debate, not that they did not pay attention. In the first place, they cheated the citizens on the things that I've talked about. That's why you see most of their surrogates when they are going, they were even saying, I remember things Mwenda who said this particular, technically, it will make HH fire an MOP. You see? That's what they were discussing.
But my question,
now, I was
about to cut my question. I was listening to Oasis Forum chairperson Beauty Katebe on DJ Shosta, and she said that if the UPND insists on passing this bill, it will cost them a vote.
Where?
In the elections of 2026. Isn't UPND really making a political suicide by going against what critical civil society organizations like Oasis Forum are speaking to?
No, that is a political statement she was making, which we have heard from the PF. Okay? You see, what the difference between ourselves and our colleagues that between the two of us, they make the loudest noise. We will make more sense in our arguments by advancing content to them. Even when we are telling them that the following is what we've done by sector, they don't want to debate that. They just go and say, no, people have failed. That's all. Blanket statement. And they believe people buy into that. The time for backward and draconian politics has gone. Now, when you talk about Katebe saying that this will cost them, she didn't know what she was talking about. That's what I'm saying, it's a political statement. She has never been a politician, perhaps. Then she doesn't seem to also understand the mindset of electorates. Because you must first of all understand, how do Zambians, by trend, react
to the things? Do you think tonight the Zambians are proud of you, Mr. Simuuwe, by passing this bill?
No, I'm coming. Before we jump to that.
Do you think Zambians are celebrating?
Now, you haven't seen, maybe you have closed your account.
No.
You need to see.
Do you think Zambians are celebrating?
They are celebrating massively.
I remember vividly.
The ones that are now
I remember vividly when Bill 10 fell. I went to cover President Hakainde Hichilema at Community House.
Yes.
There was jubilation not only at Community House, but in town and around.
Yes.
People were excited that Bill 10 has failed.
But let me tell you.
And you claim that this process is people-driven, and people were in support of this process.
Yes.
Don't you think that the time that we passed this bill at second reading, I didn't see any excitement?
No, the issue is that you are not omnipresent like God, where you are found everywhere. As you know that I've been in your industry for many years. You can't be here and see people celebrating in Chawama. But if you want to see, because we are in the digital age, go online. You see how people are celebrating. Go online and see celebration. Where I was myself, because I was asking people, what is that noise about? It's Bill 7.
Where was that?
Okay, it's Bill 7. Where I was, it was in Rose Park. People are celebrating, and I've received so many messages. Within a short period of time, many musicians have composed songs. I just made you listen to one song, which I was requesting you to play through the technical team there at the close of this particular program, so that you can see the dedication, the enthusiasm that people have to even go to the extent of composing a song celebrating Bill 7. Now, let me get to address issues that we have been labored to deal with, the issues of the process.
Before we go to the process, let's speak our first caller. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Let's speak our first caller from Lusaka. Hello, good evening. Are you able to hear me? All right, Director, I'll ask you to put volume when they call back again. The phone lines are officially open, but also you can interact with us by going to our Facebook page. We are streaming this program live on our Facebook page. That's at Diamond TV Online. The stream has been shared on the UPND page as well. You can give us your contributions through those particular platform that you're about to make your your point and your argument on the process.
Yes, so I'm saying there are key institutions that helped us revert to multi-party democracy in 1991, and ZCT was one of them. Trade unions were one of them. Under the circumstances, trade unions have supported the process. I told you over 34 CSOs supported the process. So many churches supported the process, including many Catholic Church members supported the process. Remember, out of about 11 dioceses, and we need to commend them, out of about 11 dioceses the whole country, only 3 were against it. And in those 3, not all of them, individual priests were against it from those 3 dioceses. So meaning the majority of even the Catholic Church members have been in support of this particular process. I want to first of all buttress something that was brought out by the chief government spokesperson, which has to do with how government also in a way adhered to the process as pronounced by the Constitutional Court, that a technical committee will be put in place. It was put in place procedurally by the president under the Inquiries Act, because it's mandated to do that, like many other presidents have done that.
Just allow me to hold you there. We've got Mr. Kombe calling us from Chongwe. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, just wanted to make a comment. I might be supporting the ruling party, or I'm pro, but I want to say one thing. When I was listening to the Minister of Information, he was really talking about the Bill 10 wanted to bar HH, whatever. This thing, why is this whole thing centered on one person? I thought this should be centered on the people, on the country, and not a person. There is too much personalization on this process, especially by the UPND. I think what is to advise them is that even as they would like as much as possible to advance the so-called loyalty to the president, I think let them bring out the substance rather than every time they're saying, no, it wanted to do this to the president. This is what the president... No. I think it's not about the person. This is about this country. For example, when we talk about the delimitation, why not give us the delimitation? If I say, once I come to my home for a meal, then you ask me, where do you stay? If you say yes, that's when I'll tell you where I stay. Why not tell us, where are you going to divide, subdivide, or whatever you're going to do? Why don't you tell us? So the whole thing is scummy, so to say.
All right, thank you so much for that contribution, Mr. Kombe. You had the concern of Mr. Kombe. Are you able to react?
Of course,
to that?
exactly. Let me react to Mr. Kombe. Mr. Kombe, you should not grow cold feet when you hear the name HH. Don't be upset. He's the president of Zambia and is part of the process that makes this particular bill into law. He can never be absent from the equation. So you need to just cover your head in the sand in order to avoid, if you don't want to hear it, you cover your head in the sand, but leave the other part of the board outside, understanding that it will never disappear. First of all, one thing you need to understand about Kombe is that the bill is initiated by the executive, or bills. then when it goes to the legislature, it will not become law. The president comes back to sign it. That is when it will be enforceable. So you can never leave him out. Then secondly, your concern of saying Bill 10 aimed at barring HH. Of course, in case you didn't know, there were so many measures that were undertaken at that time, Bakombe. Let me just remind you, there was a Hatembo issue. When a fraudulent charge of treason failed, they went for the Hatembo. The next thing that you saw was when all these flopped, they went to use the law, where they wanted to talk about a legally disqualified person. And they also wanted to include a clause that a person who has failed to win elections more than maybe 2 times shall not contest. They had in mind President HH, who at the time was seen as a threat. Bakombe, you should never...
Where was that? That was in Bill 10?
This is what I'm telling you. Sometimes people feel lazy to read the document because they think that it is too big. Now, I'll tell you something that all those things were aimed at trying to create a problem. The next thing that they wanted to do with that bill, under legally disqualified, any person that is legally disqualified, they wanted to amend Articles 266 of the Constitution of Zambia so they could insert the word legally disqualified person by the judicial institution or any other tribunal. And the very fact that the grounds upon which this particular insertion of the word could have been exercised were not very clear. It was completely targeted. So, Bakombe, you should not feel bad. We are in a democracy. President HH is the president of the Republic of Zambia. He is also a politician. He will never lack in our discourse. If you feel bad that is being mentioned, we are sorry for that. But again, it has to remain. You have to take it. You can't force people not to talk about him. Whom do you want us to talk about? Because, for example, he's our president. And where he's threatened, we should not talk about him. I don't think democracy is about shutting other people. Let me quickly get to the other issue. Delimitation.
Are you going to be,
he raised the issue of delimitation.
Are you going to be factual here when you say that Bill 10 wanted to disqualify HH from contesting? Because these are the same arguments that others were suggesting that, for example, Bill 7 wants to, is proposing to extend the tenure of office, of President Hakaine's tenure by 7 years. And those just speculations that, because I have the objects of the bill here with me of Bill 10.
Let me go to the document. I give you the clause that was being looked at.
Yeah, because
we want to use facts here so that we actually
let's go to the
some
facts.
of the things that we are dealing with. So in the meantime, I'm dealing with the second question, which has to do with delimitation. Bakombe, ECZ, I'm sure you've seen already the publication of the 2019 delimitation. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's I've seen it.
Yes, the ECZ has not started doing delimitation now. They started it around 2019, and the document has been published. But here's one thing that you need to understand for avoidance of doubt. It is difficult for ECZ to state in no uncertain terms that these 30 constituencies must undergo delimitation because the law has not yet been enacted. Why? Because the object of the bill does not change, but they can make amendments. What would be the object? The object is to increase on the number of constituencies. But remember that under Standing Order 116, you can actually make an amendment to the bill. Meanwhile, the object to increase, which is the principle to increase, remains. So, assuming that the first document, I'll give you an example, proposed to discontinue by-elections, but there was a report from the technical committee representing the views of the people that by-elections must continue, which together with the initial substantive document were submitted by the technical committee, getting into the report stage, and the areas have been considered for an amendment to the initial bill that you knew. The next thing, you remember that the initial position of the bill was to have about three persons living with disabilities. You discover that there are changes that have taken place as a result of the submissions at the select stage, because this particular standing order allows for that. Let me quickly look at the document that I told you about.
Just
with regard to
Moses Likando,
the question that you asked me.
Moses Likando, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. From Kitwe.
Good evening, Mr. Andrew.
Good evening to you, Mr. Likando.
Yes, I'm calling from Kitwe, Likando here.
Hope Kitwe is okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Go ahead with your contribution.
Can I go ahead?
Please go ahead.
Yes. I want to contribute to the information from Mr. Mark Simuuwe concerning the celebration. I heard you saying that there's a lot of celebration here where he was, but I'm not agree with him. Where did he see the celebration? Here in Kitwe is quiet. Lusaka is quiet. So I'm not agree with him saying that there's a lot of celebration, because concerning the census, they did not do the properly because of the short time of period. So yes, that's my contribution. Thank you.
All right.
Did I hear him talk about the census? Now, if he is not celebrating, it does not mean other people are not celebrating. I think the debate should not center around celebration. If you see people over celebrating tomorrow because they are also dealing with by-elections, you should not be surprised, but let me read something. So the bill seeks to amend Article 266 to insert a new term, legally disqualified, this is in Bill 10, defined as a disqualification by a court or quasi-judicial body established by law.
Was that the revised Bill 10?
What?
Is that the revised one?
There was a revised Bill 10.
There was a revised Bill 10, yes.
Now, I'm giving you what was in the same... So
because initially, it's like how Bill 7 was in its initial stage, but when it went before the select committee and people made submissions, some of those issues fell down because you rejected them as Upnd.
Ah, wait a minute. Wait a minute. First of all, there was no way you could tell me about what was revised and what, because it didn't go through the second stage. Do you get the point? So, and after that, they had to pass a law which we questioned, which was called the National Dialogue Forum, okay, where a draft was already made. Nobody was consulted. They had already made a draft, no one was consulted. Then they passed a law which criminalized even abstinence. Then that particular law could not allow, a process where people could check properly up to the time it goes to the first reading. Now, I'm very careful here because I'm making reference to the proposed areas. So they're legally disqualified by the court or quasi-judicial body. The next thing that they wanted to do in this particular bill is that they wanted to, that's why it was bad, they wanted to destroy institutions such as FIC by merging it, by amending Article 193 so that they could merge with the Drug Enforcement Commission.
Yep.
Then the next thing that you found in that particular bill was that they proposed to scrap Article 184 2D, which holds the permanent secretary accountable. Remember, the permanent secretary would appear before the Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
They wanted, because at their time, I'm sure you saw that most of the permanent secretaries were flip-flopping and failing to defend public expenditure. They wanted to scrap Article 184 2D, which holds the permanent secretaries accountable. The next thing that they sought to do was they wanted the proposal to keep in the office ministers in office after dissolution of parliament up to the election date, which is the opposite of what is being proposed now. No assumptions. What was being proposed, that ministers must vacate office. In this particular bill, they were proposing that ministers must remain in office until the election day, okay, under Article 117. Then they wanted to reintroduce deputy ministers in Article 117A. Then the next thing that they wanted to do, they proposed to amend Article 149 to give the power to the president to create divide or merge.
We can agree in principle, Mr. Simuuwe,
Yeah.
that there are also similar things that were in Bill 10 that are in Bill 7. Issues of delimitation, issues of proportional representation. That is, what also was in Bill 10. And so when people speak of the fact that Bill 10 and Bill 7 are Siamese twins, they probably mean that some of the issues that have been proposed in this bill were present as well in Bill 10.
Now, let me give you an example, which is very basic. Maybe it can be understood differently. You get vegetables, perhaps chihuahua. One of them goes with groundnuts, the other one goes with cooking oil. Both of them are vegetables, but they are different. What is the difference? Is the content. And this is what I'm reading. Two issues can come out to be, for example, you've talked about delimitation, okay? You've talked about delimitation. Which report they never showed you.
And you have not showed us a report?
Now, wait a minute. I've already told you that the ECZ has given you a report, which started in 2019.
But do you know how that report came out?
No,
it first came out from Seshua.
No. The point I'm trying to drive home at the end of the day is that at what point is this report made available? After the law has been
passed.
Exactly, because
the law
delimitation. Because delimitation is only delimitation when it is law. So it is then published in the government gazette. So the first principle that should be done is numbers of members of parliament, numbers of seats of constituencies must be increased. In the same way we did it under SATA. Then the next thing that followed was it.
So you don't think the same argument applies here? The PF didn't release the delimitation report, probably because Bill 10 didn't pass. And so are you going to fault PF for not publishing what was contained in the ECZ delimitation report?
No, here's my argument again. When you go to Article 58, again, will guide you. At a time that you are publishing in the government gazette, the constituencies that have been delimited, the law has already been passed. It's a cast in stone. In other words, when they publish in the government gazette that Mwansa constituency, Mark constituency, and so on, it means it's done. The law has already been passed. So that's why I'm saying that the problem which is there is that we want to mix things. Imagine ECZ published that the constituents to be delimited are 100 in principle, because they conduct surveys in all the constituencies across the country. That's how the report looks. During this period, there is no law that binds them to make it known to you. So when you are dealing with legal issues, you must cite the law.
So now why are you faulting the PF for not making
I'm not
it public?
faulting them. I'm just telling you that I'm reminding you.
You're saying that they didn't make it public for people to know where there's.
Yes, so I'm asking them. The reason we ask is that they never made it public.
And for simple reasons.
I'm coming. They never made it public.
Yes.
But this time they are asking questions. Do you get the point? They went with it. Now, why I'm asking that question is that here is the hypocrisy. That's the term I was trying to avoid.
I see.
I was trying to avoid that term deliberately.
But yeah, the delimitation itself is a big subject. In fact, it's one of the issues that others say is very contentious here. The argument, Mr. Simuuwe, is that the areas that are going to be delimited are areas where the Upnd is strong. Are you telling me that once the ECZ releases this delimitation report, the concerns that stakeholders are having won't be what we're going to find in this report?
Now, listen to this, my brother. Delimitation is not by opinion of citizens. The Constitution provides for guidelines for delimitation. It's not a feeling that Andrew, tell me which area should be delimited and give me a reason. It's not a referendum.
But it can be manipulated.
No. There's nothing like that, because ECZ by the Constitution is already given the mandate and the guidelines are here, which they use for doing delimitation. So The argument we should have after the publication of the constituencies is whether ECZ went by the guidelines that are contained in the Constitution.
Why is UPN,
did you get my point?
Why is UPN not consistent with arguments?
As you are going to that question.
Why is UPN not very consistent with the arguments? Because this is the argument that you had as UPN in 2019, 2020, when the Patriotic Front...
Wait a minute. I want to be satisfactory. Did you hear my point?
I heard your point.
My point
that it's a mandate of the Electoral Commission of Zambia to conduct delimitation.
Yes.
And their guidelines.
Now, you know, where is that found?
Article 58.
Article 58, 5, and I quote,
yes.
The Electoral Commission of Zambia shall, at intervals of not more than 10 years, review the names and boundaries of constituencies and wards. Now, here was our argument, that you started collecting the views and doing all these formalities in 2019 to date. Now, here is the problem. From the time that we last did delimitation, if this exercise is not done now, it means we will have violated this particular provision of the Constitution, because it will already be 10 years. Now, how? This particular amendment that is going on now will only come into effect at the dissolution of Parliament. Assuming that this bill did not go through, Bill 7, it meant that if we conducted these amendments after the election, it was going to come into effect in 2031. Meaning, we will have gone against a clear provision, express provision in Article 58, Sub-Article 5. Now, listen to this. After that has been done, the names and details of the boundaries of constituencies and wards shall be published in the Government Gazette and shall come into effect on the next dissolution of Parliament. Now, if you look at this clause, it means the work is done. What ECZ is publishing is not by guesswork so that people can see which ones have been done. What ECZ is doing in this clause is now responding to the number of seats that have been added in the Constitution.
We would ask Mkosa calling us from within Lusaka. Mr. Mkosa, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
There's one who asked the question. We didn't answer it.
You're going to answer them collectively. Mr. Oscar Mkosa from within Lusaka, good evening.
Good evening, my brother Andrew. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Comrade Mark, good evening.
Fine, thank you. Mr. Mkosa, how are you?
I'm good, my brother. Mine is a very short one. I just want to commend the members of Parliament to fulfill their mandate, which they were given by the Zambian people. This bill was not political. That's why even the people that have been opposing this bill, they are struggling to tell the Zambian people the clauses that they are against. Or what they are talking about is something else that we can't even understand as Zambians. So it is good that the MPs now have shown that when we have a serious matter, more especially a national matter that needs everybody, they can rise above political lines and vote on and do something which is beneficial to the country and which can better the country of now and the generation to come. So for me, I want the MPs not to listen to these people that are crying because for them they wanted to do my politics. We don't have to do my politics every time, even on serious national matters. This was not political. This was a straightforward issue which came from all the constitutional review commissions that we had in the past. This has been the cry of the people. Now, as a people, as a nation, we are very happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukosa, for your contribution. As you respond to Mr. Mukosa and the earlier contribution that came in, Mr. Simuuwe, so many people on Facebook are writing their contributions as well. And thank you so much to a lot of you that are watching us on our Facebook page. That's at Diamond TV Online. Laura Miti writes, the Parliament of Zambia has never sat on Monday or parliamentary committee on a Saturday. What crisis is there that Bill 7 has forced both these occurrences? Niwani Echufwa. Who would die if we followed established processes? Dear citizens, a government prepared to change rules and practice for its interests like that is to be feared. It starts with small things.
Now,
and these are concerns
I'll respond.
That have come in.
Don't generalize them. That is an opinion from an individual. I want to respond to her. She has not quoted any law that has been broken. And I have a problem with that kind of thinking. You see, the standing orders are rules that Parliament makes its own rules. And then you know that one of the things that you also need to understand is that a bill has a lifespan of 6 months. I think it's supposed to, it has to expire by 25th of December. So if it is revived within 6 months, then it remains legitimate. So that's point,
why you expeditiously.
No, don't say you. I'm saying Parliament has its own way, or it makes its own rules. And they can give a reason or not give a reason. For example, standing orders. These are their own rules which they make. And in making these rules, they don't need to consult people who are outside. They have their own rules. They are quite standing, but almost as thick as the Constitution of Zambia. So now, when a person like that is giving a view, they must state which law has been broken. Because these guys can also make their own laws.
Well, perhaps that's against the practice. That's against the practice that Parliament sits from Tuesday to Friday.
No, but have they given you a reason why they don't sit and why they would change? For example, I'll give you an answer. When the president is reading the State of the Nation address, and it is on Friday, when Parliament is supposed to maybe to run from morning up to 14 hours, doesn't it surprise you that it can even go beyond? Number two, when the budget is being presented, what time does Parliament start? And what time does it end? So Parliament has made so many changes in terms of the timings, where you find 1930 they are still debating. People would question because it concerns an issue they do not agree with. But that shouldn't be our argument. It should be premised on which law has been violated. In the absence of that, we are producing smoke. And it is not ideal to state a proposition that merely sticks to a particular conduct, especially if there is no law that has been violated. Let me deal with the issue that
so is it wrong for people to question if that goes against the practice, of Parliament?
And now I've answered. And the answer is that Parliament makes its own rules. It's like you sleep, your practice is that to sleep at 21 hours. Then for various reasons, you sleep at midnight. Is there a problem? So now,
this concern is attached to the fact.
I'm deliberately lowering the conversation so that we can speak to each other.
Yes, I think the issue here
I've moved from the
I think the issue here is that the concern, not just by Laura Miti, but by others, is that there's a feeling, in which you, the UPND, or the executive arm of government is rushing this process. And people are saying there's no need for us to rush the process.
And what is the speed at which it should move? Now, these are things I'm saying, look, when we are pushing a conversation, it must be premised on the law. If they are within their constitutional mandate, their job is to legislate. When they do it, if it does not come in violation or in conflict with any law, then you should have no problem. Let me look at the question differently. Assuming that they did not vote on a Monday, they voted tomorrow. The question that you need to ask yourself is, was the quorum going to change? Because it's the same people that have voted. Was it going to change anything? Was it going to change the fact that MP Kangombe voted for it, although he's being assaulted for the role that you sent him to Parliament to do is to make laws? And I've already demonstrated to you that many other laws apart from the Constitution have been enacted, and over 95 acts of Parliament have been passed. Over 500 statutory instruments have been passed through the same National Assembly.
I want you to educate the people now that may not fully understand this Bill 7. What exactly is the UPND? Because this is part of your manifesto that you intend to bring about reforms, and you argue that for you this is a direction in what you had promised the Zambian people. By passing Bill 7, what have we fixed?
Okay, that is a good question. Let me start by, making reference to the thematic areas in the objects. Number one, when the population is growing, okay? When the population is growing, there should be more representation. Remember that delimitation is not just about constituencies, it's also about wards, okay? It is a requirement that people are well represented. Number two, Zambia signed a lot of international, regional, and international protocols. The AU protocols, the SADC protocols on the participation of women and youths. What we need, according to one of the cases, remember that case law is one of our sources of law in Zambia. The case of Zambia Sugar Company versus Fellow Nanzaruka, where it says for a particular international convention to be applicable in Zambia, it must be domesticated. To domesticate is to make domestic laws that respond to international conventions. So when that has been done, it's an achievement, because you have an express provision in the Constitution that will easily be enforceable and applied. That's what it means. The other one that you may refer to, which recognizes the importance and the existence of international convention, this is the Sarah Longwe case versus Intercontinental Hotel. Only the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. So that's an achievement for us. It's a long-term achievement, because in the Sarah Longwe case, it just became a reference point for persuasive reasons when adjudicating matters. But now we can have express provisions in the supreme law of the land.
Before we continue to explain our objects of the bill, you're on mixed member you're on mixed proportion, representation. How is this suggested to work?
Yeah, we are going to look at it. You remember when we were making a submission to the Select Committee with the Secretary General? For various reasons, we had to carefully indicate that we have supported the principle of inclusivity.
Yes.
On the technicalities of how to add, we can borrow from various jurisdictions. It's going to be a wide range of
what was the submission?
Yes, yeah. So no, this is what I'm saying. I'm giving you the submission of what it was. We said we'll not indulge ourselves in the technicalities, but we can suggest there could be so many jurisdictions that we can we can borrow from. We can borrow from Rwanda, we can borrow from Kenya, we can borrow from Morocco. What could be some of the possibilities? Some of the possibilities, because now this is an issue of, okay, we've approved that we'll be having a shima in the evening. So now it's an issue of agreeing where it will be cooked on a brazier or on a gas stove or an electric stove, but it leads to shima. So the principle is to have a meal in the evening. And this is what we are talking about. So what could be other possibilities that can be explored? Number one, other jurisdictions, to get that inclusivity, by principle, you get the same results. They would use the political parties that have representation in parliament. Number two, others would use a presidential vote. This presidential vote, for example, because we have a rerun.
Yeah.
In a rerun, the principle is that when there is a deadlock, and then you go in for a rerun, the rest of the votes that were for presidential candidates have been nullified, technically.
Yes.
So those will have to align themselves to the two that are in the contestation. Now, in such a situation, you can also have a caveat, not to nullify necessarily, but use them for purposes of proportional representation. Then you push a threshold and say, whoever garners a minimum of 30% votes, so that you don't have a circus. What are you looking at? You are basically trying to share the 40 seats, okay? So that we get what is the principle? To arrive at the same number of people through positive discrimination in the National Assembly, but taking into consideration the fact that there are many participants in this democratic process who should be given an opportunity to also send people.
Yes.
So there are all these approaches that could be undertaken. But the principle is we'll be having a meal every evening, whether through a brazier, whether through an electric stove or a gas stove. The next thing that I want to bring out, which I believe we've achieved, has to do with the fresh nominations I talked about. We have cured the problem that was caused through statutory interpretation, which all of us said this is a crisis. People avoided discussing it, and yet the case law is already there as a source of law in Zambia. And we had to test the pudding when fresh nominations were called. Then we said, oh, we are doomed. Can we fix this? Now, there are two possibilities that you undertake where there is a gap in the statutory interpretation. To refine the law so that you align it to the reasoning of the court, number one. Two, to amend or repeal the law so that you reject a particular judgment or reasoning of the court. So under the circumstances, we realize that the reasoning of the court, not that it is wrong, but it is right in the context of the drafters of the Constitution. But then because it has made us arrive at a very dangerous position, instead of codifying it, we need to now repeal or amend a particular provision so that we do not have that kind of unnecessary fresh nominations that may culminate into cancellation of general elections and then create a constitutional crisis. So basically, that is an achievement
the
for
interpretation
us.
The interpretation, correct me if I'm wrong, then it makes that particular judgment that you're using as case law as a nullity, because there's
that's what happens.
A change in the Constitution.
Yes, I agreed with you, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and when you look at any other law, meaning subsidiary legislation, that is in conflict with the Constitution, is now or is void to the extent of its inconsistency. So meaning that particular case law, which is basically law or judge-made law, becomes a nullity once you have now put in place an express provision that deals with that void that you may have identified through statutory interpretation at the Constitutional Court. So we must indicate that for us that's an achievement. The other achievement that we need to also celebrate is the idea that, look, if we are no longer having the council chairpersons and the mayors elected by the council, they are now subjected to an open election like any other politician. The question that we ask ourselves is that, what is the rationale behind limiting them to 2 terms? If councillors can go in perpetuity, as long as citizens decide to vote them back, if MPs can also continue for as long as citizens believe they have to come back, and it's up to the citizens to say, oh, I think you have had enough, we are removing you. And that's what democracy is all about. So we realize that there is no proper rationale to limit these when others, all of them are subjected to almost an open general election. For the presidents, it's a standard practice world over, so that we avoid a situation where you have leaders that rule the countries in perpetuity. Okay? So at that level, that is an achievement. The next thing that we need to deal with is that the idea of shortchanging members of parliament. In the case, you remember the case of eligibility and ECL. The court defined what amounts to a term. And the court said, again, as a result of the court judgment, you need to understand that most of these proposals that are in the bill are as a result of the conduct of the court, positively, in the manner that we intended that it should be or not. So the court said a term is 5 years. Then we realized that MPs stop even getting paid before 5 years. Meaning we have to cure that by codifying the law. Because the court said a term is 5 years.
5 years.
So I said, oh, can we align it? We will align it, but during that period, they will not be doing legislative business.
But they'll still be called honourable members of parliament.
That name does not go even when you are ejected from the seat.
So parliament will still dissolve 3 months before the election?
Correct. Then when that has been done, those remain on the payroll, of course.
And what will be their duties now?
They will not conduct any business, but the idea is that they will have remained holding on to a particular area up to the close of expiration of 5 years.
5 years. Quickly,
then,
I want to give an opportunity. There's 2 minutes. I want to give an opportunity to also respond to this.
I want to talk about ministers. That's why I want to justify that. The court made a judgment, delivered a judgment under Edgar Lungu. Remember the time we were arguing on whether ministers needed to
stay in office.
Now, so even if this was not amended, ministers needed to dissolve or to vacate office as a result of that judgment. So what have we done? We have simply gotten the judgment and codified it in the Constitution. Because the judgment is subject to manipulation over time.
Yeah.
Whereas it's a process which is complex to remove it from the Constitution.
In 2 minutes, I want us to now demystify some of the myths that have been surrounding this process of Bill 7 and the Bill 7 itself. Bill 7 has been described as a dangerous bill, a dictatorial bill. It's been described as an illegal bill. It's been given the name of it wanting to extend the tenure of office of President Hakainde Hichilema, to more years. it's been described so many things. Let's begin off from there. Also, there are allegations that from the Secretariat you paid 3 million kwacha to these members of parliament to support this bill. Let's deal with some of these myths as we conclude. Is it true? You partially answered on members of parliament being paid. Is it true that the Upnd paid 3 million kwacha to PF members of parliament to support Bill 7?
Now, if Upnd did that, if Upnd did that, why didn't PF do the same to pass Bill 10? Because under Bill 10, Upnd decided to stay away. And it collapsed because PF had no numbers. Even now, there are PF members that stayed away. Others know they have a legislative mandate, constitutional mandate to legislate. They said, no, I support the bill. But then, all these people that rejected it, I wish we had a law that all those that rejected it should not get paid in that 3 months after dissolution of parliament. Because immediately the president assents to it, the constitution will apply. Except delimitation. It's the only one which will come and apply at the...
Is Bill 7 dangerous?
Now, this is how they were sensational. This is how malicious and scrupulous they were to try to brainwash citizens, but they could not demonstrate how dangerous it was. You just mentioned in your question that they were saying this will be dictatorial. They can't demonstrate by content how dictatorial it is. The very fact that an individual, Katebe, disagrees, it does not mean that what she disagrees to is right or wrong. She has the right to an opinion, and that's an opinion. And not all opinions will go through. That, as I have demonstrated to you, that in lawmaking and in a democracy, people must agree to disagree. Now we have a situation in this country where our colleagues believe whatever they say is gospel truth. They are not gods that what they say should come to pass. No. They should allow for democracy to thrive. That we elect leaders whose job is to legislate. And if they go against our opinion, it is within their right to do so. Not to gag their rights. So we respect their rights, and they have lost. Not to Vanaya, to say the least. Right now they are mourning, they are looking for other means, but it's too late.
You concluded remarks as we close the program.
This is a celebration for the country. Those who are saying, I'm not hearing people celebrating. Are you God that you are found in all the parts of the country, that you stretched your neck, you peeped through Mbala in every home, and you are seeing people not celebrating? So, should not be surprised if you hear now, because we are methodical. We could be planning for proper celebrations. Remember, we are careful. Why they are looking for celebrations? We were busy dealing with candidates in these by-elections. This is how they waste their time. They are busy insulting MPs. We are busy campaigning. There are by-elections that are going on. I think we are about 4 by-elections. We are busy, and as you are talking about...
To show that you are a government or you're a party that means what you say, why didn't you choose a woman or a young person for Chawama?
For what?
In the by-election
it's the people that choose there. We don't impose. Look, that's what democracy is. There's no affirmative action there. It is only where there is a law that you have to impose a candidate on the people of Chawama. For example, Mwansa doesn't stay in Chawama. Mwansa, Andrew doesn't stay in Chawama, but Mwansa works for the Secretariat. So who should have a say on the candidate in Chawama? It's the people of Chawama.
We need to close
so
now.
If the people of Chawama overlook a lady and then they say this is the one we want, democracy requires that you give it to the people as they wish.
Director,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Andrew.
Your comment.